Welcome to today's Mindful Minute. We're going to talk a bit about cognitive changes and the workplace. I'm Michelle Needens. I'm a social worker here at the Cognitive Care Network at the KU Alzheimer's Disease Center. And many people who have been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, early, whatever kind of dementia, early Alzheimer's, continue to thrive in the workplace for a period of time. And there's considerations and accommodations that perhaps would be useful to think through in those environments. So we're going to talk about that today. The type of job matters. So for some individuals, they may be in positions that really require a high level of function in an area that may be impacted by your specific type of dementia. So maybe your job would be affected earlier on for you, where someone else maybe have a job that really relies on a part of the brain and a set of rapid skills that they continue to possess. So the type of the job matters. For example, numbers can be affected early on. So if you have early Alzheimer's disease, for example, or even mild cognitive impairment, sometimes we see the implication in numbers. Sometimes for those of you who might have a vascular dementia, it depends on where the particular damage in the brain is. Does it affect numbers? So doesn't mean you can't do a lot of other things, but if your job relies on numbers, if you are the accountant, if you're the finance manager, then that may be problematic. So we're going to talk about accommodations, but that may mean that you're going to have to transition out of that position earlier than you would another type of job. High-paced jobs can be a challenge, so that rapid fire kind of jobs may be problematic. That you may do great at your job, you just require a bit of a slower pace. And can that be accommodated for? New technology can be a challenge. I have friends with early Alzheimer's disease who, gosh, the whole software changed and just really struggled with adapting to the new software, the new reporting system, et cetera. So that can present a challenge. Procedural memory issues can impact. And again, these are things that at times can be very easily accommodated for. But by procedural memory, meaning step by step, just kind of losing thought about where are you in that process. Performance anxiety can impact. So the more worried we get, I think about just a wonderful person that diagnosed with early Alzheimer's disease. He worked as a scientist at the FDA. And when he was diagnosed, he just had such anxiety about, am I getting these experiments correct? So for him, it was a high pressure job. That there could not be any errors in the experiment. So his workday moved from 8 hours a day to almost double, because he would repeat his experiments over and over. He would double check his work. And I've known of other individuals. There was a woman who was the accountant at her company, and she did the same thing. She'd do everything twice. And I don't know that they made mistakes. They never indicated they made mistakes, but there was so much anxiety about, do I have it right, that they added this pressure to themselves and essentially doubled their work. And then, what's the role, the significance of the job to you? There are individuals who financially just have to keep working and thinking through what that means. There are individuals who are in a wonderful, supportive workplace that the accommodations can be made and they can continue in that work environment and that's meaningful to them. It isn't just about, can I work here or can I not work here? We really look at the whole picture. What's the challenges? What's the accommodations needed? What's the environment look like? What's the significance to the person? All of those kinds of things. So there's considerations to think about. There are protections through the Americans with Disability Act, and it really requires employers to think through and provide what's referred to as reasonable accommodations. And many of the accommodations that might be suggested or that might extend work life are within this bailiwick of what we would consider reasonable. They're not outrageous requests. Individual adjustments, and what does that mean for you? There's the employer-based accommodations and there's the you changes that might need to happen. And then really thinking through what is the specific cognitive concern that's contributing to the problem for your particular workplace. So we're just going to talk through some examples of accommodations just to open up your mind to what can be. So it's possible to have a voice activated recorder to record verbal instructions. And so sometimes that could be, if it's in a in-service training, you could record that and you and maybe some trusted person could listen to that recorded in service again, and then just take notes about step by step and then record that so that you could listen to it periodically as you go through, or secure and use written information. Maybe you just write out those tasks. Maybe you even include visual cues along with those instructions. So if it's a new program, or maybe it's not even new, but you're struggling with what is the order to on the computer, that step by step, you can see the screen, you can take the next step, which button to push, just not only to extend your ability to do that, but maybe you're doing fine with doing that, but by having those written instructions or the voice recorded instructions, it allows your anxiety to go down, that it increases your sense of confidence. And that's just as important, if not more important, than the how-tos. Use checklists of what to do, what you need to do, who to talk to. Maybe you have it in your head, but again, once you get that on paper, your confidence goes up. Create templates of forms to prompt what you need for information. You might be a insurance salesperson, or you might be something in purchasing. Whatever it is, if your work requires forms or certain procedures, prepare an example or have someone help you prepare an example so that you can again be affirmed by what you're doing. Focus on essential functions. So many of us are individuals who we take on more and more and more. That's just our nature. Maybe it's because we enjoy work. Maybe it's because we see what other people need to do. Maybe we're helping our coworkers. But really, let's think through what are your essential functions. So quit over functioning. That's what I'm telling you. That this isn't the time to be the star of the office. This is the time to really think through, how do I sustain my functions as an employee? Using color-coded files or systems sometimes help to keep track of things. And maybe that takes an organizer helping you in your office. Maybe that takes a close friend or family member helping you in your office, but really looking at organizational systems are going to be helpful. And that color coding can be one type of organizational system. Ask for extended or individual training time when it comes to significant workplace changes, such as certain procedures or forms or or technology. So, you know, ask for that extended time or individual time. So getting back to organization and environment. Lots of us, if you saw my office as I look around, you would see a certain stack of, you know, some stacks of files and of things. Let's file it. Let's minimize the clutter. Everything needs to be as clear as possible. There may be things that you have in your office or around your space that you think are interesting. Get rid of it. Interesting isn't going to help you. What's going to help you is the key things that you need to do your job are in a place that you can keep track of and support your memory and reduce the anxiety around managing it. So minimize the clutter. We talked about color coding items or resources around you. Divide large tasks into multiple smaller tasks. So maybe you have to complete a report. So you divide the report in 3 parts. You do one part, you take a break, you do another part. So divide your tasks into smaller steps. So, you know, maybe it's about, you know, I'm going to clean this house. Well, divide it into tasks that you can put on a checklist one step at a time. You know, oftentimes our minds think in these large expanses of what we need to do rather than the small bits that make up the large part. And I'm telling you, we need to concentrate on the small bits. We need to put that down in a checklist so that we can get that accomplished. Avoid reorganization of workspace. In other words, you know, not everything needs to change. It's really about the clutter. We don't, you know, need to move everything. We just want to minimize the clutter. We need to organize the files, that kind of thing. Label things, label drawers, label files, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Sometimes to use those visual cues, symbols, instead of or in addition to words is helpful. Just the way we see it might ring truer. There's time management accommodations. So, you know, use reminders, either written or symbolic. So that means a calendar. And it often means just one calendar. Arrange your materials in order of use. So if you have to work on 4 things, make sure all the materials for those 4 things are in separate piles, stacks, files, whatever is true to your work environment. Use a task list with numbers or symbols for importance or deadlines. So, you know, if you work in the hardware store and you need to stock these certain things, you might put, you know, the red is what has to get done today. The yellow is if you have time to do today. If there's a deadline for, you know, the trucks coming in at 4 o'clock, etc. So make a task list that helps you organize how you use your day. And then again, ask for additional training or retraining as needed. If that retraining or additional training occurs, remember to write things down. You need the visual cue, you need the external cue. Do you tell your supervisor and HR people? And how do you discuss that? You know, important to do, to have those kind of conversations. You know, if you see anxiety rise, if you begin to see any implication, even private one, that you're able to accommodate, it may be the time to have these conversations. You know, certainly you want to retain as many job tasks as possible that you're familiar with and that you continue to be proficient in. So think through, what are those tasks I'm still doing fine in? You want to remove marginal job functions to allow more focus on the essential functions. So you want to reduce the job responsibilities, and, you know, I find many of those are self-imposed. So just reduce the marginal ones, focus on the essential functions. Incorporate tasks from other employees' job descriptions. So sometimes there are things that have been in your bailiwick, that your set of job responsibilities that you just can't do, that it adds too much stress, that you can't keep up for whatever reason, that the liability of error is too great. And if any of that happens, think through, what can I pass off to someone else and what can they pass off to me? And of course, that needs to be a conversation with HR and supervisor. You can consider a reduction in job hours. Sometimes, you're doing great for the first, 4 hours, 6 hours. It just takes so much mental energy that by 8 hours, you're making mistakes at the end of the day. So think through, what is that dose? What's the work dose for me? And could I do it if it was part-time? And then consider a reassignment to a position that better matches areas of capability. And I have lots of examples of that. I worked with a woman who was a grade school teacher. She knew the information. It wasn't anything to do with her teaching, but just the chaos of the classroom and having to keep her eye on so many things, just that really overwhelming need for multitasking made it too difficult for her to stay in the classroom. So she transitioned to being a private tutor. She could tutor the kids, she could teach the kids. It was just the classroom was too much for her to manage. So she transitioned to an assignment that fit her better. And then finally, there is a time to transition out of that workplace. And it's really when the stress outweighs the benefit. When there's just this dread that comes on you when you go to work, and there is this anxiety through the day of, am I doing it right? Am I keeping up? That you just have this on guard. You're just prepared. You're just on, is the only way I know how to say it. And you are so worn out by the end of the day. And there's not a sense of feeling good. There's just a sense of, you made it. And when that stress outweighs the benefit, think about transitioning out. Think about these accommodations. If you've tried them, you've reduced the hours, and that burden is still on you, maybe it's time to transition into something else. And let me tell you, there's always something else. And it's thinking through, what is the next thing? What keeps my purpose alive? What keeps the structure there? What keeps me finding it important to get up in the morning? So it's not just about letting go, it's also about replacing. So have those conversations and be thinking about that far before you leave the work environment, and continue beyond. You may need to play with volunteer work, or new hobbies, or whatever it is. But it's not just about the workplace, it's also about what comes next. As always, if there is questions you have, you want to process something that you heard in the Mindful Minute today, know we're here, and we're certainly willing to have those conversations with you. Best of luck to you. Have a good week.